Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Forum YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Mike Beer, and we have a special Pick 5 wagering strategy video for you coming up. We're going to take a look at the Coast to Coast Pick 5 this Saturday, March the 8th. It's going to be at Gulfstream Park in at Santa Anita. Mike, what we really like about these wagers, low takeout. Anytime we can get stuff in the 10 to 15% range, we're loving that as horse players. This is a 15% low takeout Pick 5. It's a dollar-based minimum, so it's a little bit harder to put your tickets together, right? You can't spread out with a 20-cent or a 50-cent base. We're giving them free DRF past performances for the sequence. So we're giving you the PPs right there. And there's no CAW wagering allowed. So none of the big computer groups and the big computer players. So for the smaller players, we have a legitimate shot. I think the pools the last couple of weeks have been just under 300,000 and like the biggest they've been. This is a really good wager to kind of map out every week if you're someone that plays on a smaller budget or if you're looking for a few things. I love taking a swing at this one.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. It's just, the kind of sequences that should be becoming more popular and that horse players should support. The lower takeout, the larger minimum, those things really make these races, these sequences way more interesting and give you a much better shot to really make a score.
So for the purposes of this video, we're going to talk about wagering strategy, some of the horses that we want to key in on, some of the horses that we might be using in our pick fives, and then some horses that we might be defending with, horses that we want to maybe get in the mix somewhere. So we'll go through each of the races of the 5 races. We're going to start out at Gulfstream Park. It'll be race number 8 at Gulfstream, and then we'll go to Santa Anita. 2 of the races are at Santa Anita, 3 of them at Gulfstream. And we start here, Mike, with a first level allowance. It's an optional 75 claimer. You have a mile and a 16th the distance on the turf course here. These are 3-year-olds, non-winners of 2. And I mean, not an easy way to start. I thought this sequence, as someone who's looked at most of these, this is right there as one of the most challenging that there has been. I just don't know how many races where you can really key in on a horse. A horse like Rare Art, for example, I think very logical in here, but we haven't seen Rare Art since, October. And this is a horse who has 0 early speed. So
Yeah,
kind of gets stuck behind horses, right?
yeah, just getting started as a 3-year-old there. She was obviously a good juvenile for Tony Dutrow, and I totally understand why she's favored on the morning line.
Absolutely.
Was competitive in stakes races last year off the layup here. She'll get Lasix now as a 3-year-old, and she's good. But this race goes beyond the favorites. There's some talent in this field.
So who are some of the horses that you want to start with maybe in the keys and to your early to your pick 5?
Yeah, we'll get the the way I looked at the race up there right now. And so the way I looked at this race, Gino, is first of all, I do have Rare Art in there as sort of a backup kind of a horse.
Me
I
too.
think she's good. I think she's the horse to beat, if I'm being honest. I liked her races last year. I didn't love them. I liked them. I do think she's good, but I didn't. Again, I feel like this race goes beyond the favorites in here. My take on this race is that the number 3 Candy Quest is a talented horse. And this is the first time that she's getting to do what I think she wants to do, and that is stretch out in distance.
Yep.
I was really taken with her debut. Mark Cassidy sprinted her first time out last year at Aqueduct. That was a 6-furlong race. I thought she ran great in there. And when he came off the layoff earlier this year, 5 furlongs, that's way too short for her. And you could just see her sort of get out quicked at the end of that race. They just sort of ran away from her, but she didn't like totally give way in there. She just couldn't really accelerate with those horses. Stretching out to me is really going to help her. I think she's talented. She's going to be a price. And she's just the kind of horse, not only do I want to sort of key in on her in a multi-race wager, I want to bet this horse to win in here. So I made her my key. I'm going to back up with the 5 flip-flops, just because I feel like she got a little bit unlucky in her last start at Tampa. If I'm being honest, I liked her a lot 2 starts back, and I thought she was pretty bad in that race. So I'm not really sure that she's good enough, but I want to use her, and I got the favorite in there. But I'm not afraid to bet against Rare Art here.
No, and I like what you're saying about Candy Quest too. I have her in one of my key horses as well. I just think she really fits as the top tier. The Dam one going long on the turf, Hap Sibling, Stakes Place going long on the turf. So you just feel like this is a horse who's going to be better going longer on the grass here. I actually liked the race that Sachet Away and Anel came out of, and I actually thought Anel was a horse who might be a little bit interesting, was second in that most recent race, was inside, was in between horses, was in a tricky spot, got shuffled back to 7th, was able to get to the outside and made an early move, got bumped a little bit. I didn't think the trip was that smooth. So I had 2, 3, 7, 9, Mike, on my top tier horses that'll be on most of my tickets all over the place. And then horses that you had kind of talked about in the same sort of way, right? The 5 who you don't want to get beat by because you feel like there's something there with flip flops. And then the 6 rare art, because I have some other prices later on in the sequence. If one of my keys hits there, I don't want to not hit the ticket because rare art won. So I'll make sure those horses get into the mix somewhere for me too. But not an easy way to start. It's a really challenging sequence.
Yeah, I agree with it. This is a kind of a wide open race. Again, I think a lot of different horses can win there, even though I didn't go very deep in there, just because I sort of have an idea with Candy Quest, and I really want to be able to press my opinion later. And of course, we do have 2 graded stakes coming up that we'll get to, and those are races where I just felt like I feel like I could narrow in there as well. So I'm not doing too much spreading.
Let's move to Santa Anita for the second leg of the sequence. We're going to go to race number 5 on the Saturday card at Santa Anita, Mike. It's a 25 non-winners of 2 going a mile on the turf course. And this is a really tricky race too, because a lot of these horses just aren't consistent or they don't win a lot. For example, Corporal Violet, the one horse who's the 3-1 second choice on the morning line, is 1 for 20 on the turf with 5 seconds. So we're not talking about a bunch of monsters and wind machines in here. To the outside, Step It Out is the 9-5 morning line favorite. And this horse hasn't hit the board in the last couple and seems kind of one-dimensional. It's a hard race to maybe trust those shorter price horses here. How did you see this one playing out with some of the horses you want?
Yeah, it's the kind of race where I think, look, I can either see it being just super logical, Gino, because there's just not a lot of talent in here, or I can just see
No.
total chaos in this race. I feel like that's what you have to decide. Do you think it's chaos, or do you just feel like, one of the logical horses is going to get there? You sort of clued in on the 2 morning line favorites. First of all, this is a race. It's a 9-horse field. Only 2 of these horses have ever won a race on the grass. You have 7 horses in this race who are maidens on the turf. The 2 horses that have won, the number 1, Corporal Violet, as you've already pointed out, she's 1 for 20 on the grass. She never wins. She's been running in 2 life claiming races since the summer of
That's the key
2023.
too, right?
Yes,
The
since
same level. It's not like she's getting a big drop here
yeah,
now and we can figure like, okay, that could put her over. She's been at that same
exactly.
level getting beat.
And we're coming up on 2 years now that she's been running in 2 life claiming races and can't win. That she's not my kind of horse. I get that she's maybe a nice feeder. I would never use a horse like this, though. I'm happy to get knocked out by her, and I don't have her in my play. The other horse is Step It Out, and at least in the case of Step It Out, this is significant class relief for her.
Yes.
She's been a little disappointing lately, but she has speed from the outside. It's a huge class drop for her. And I could just sort of see her getting to the lead in here and just being too good for these horses. And so I feel like you can see on my grid there, I just sort of, I didn't know where to go in here. The 4 horses that I have in there, 2, 4, 5, and 9 are like the 4 that I think I could make logical cases for. I could make the case that I could just press the 9 in here and make the other 3 horses backups. I just decided to put them all as key horses because this is the kind of race where I'm trying to survive.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be a lot of similars with you. 2, 3, or 3, 4, 5, and 9 were kind of the ones I have in my top 2 tiers. The horse who I think is just the most consistent that I feel like you know what you're going to get from is Auditory. I mean, when you look at Auditory's overall form, 7 races that like fit, 2 races where she was just facing tougher. The 1 race against Maiden 62s on the grass, I put a line through that, and the debut. The other 7 races all around this level, they're all pretty solid. This is a horse who's been in the money in most of them, and then a couple 4th place finishes. So I think Auditory is kind of solid. I feel like we'll hit the board if nobody jumps up and really improves here under the conditions. So I'm going to make sure I have Auditory all over the place. And then the 3, God's Favor, is kind of a sneaky long shot who I think's run a little bit better than may look in the last couple races on the grass. And then the 5 and the 9. The 5 will come running. And as you mentioned with the 9, there are definitely versions of this race where the 9 just gets out front because, you do the hemming and hawing a little bit, drop into a career low, has a code top buyer. And as you pointed out, could absolutely be the one that clears the field from the outside, but she's only hit the board once in those 7 US starts too, right? So this is a big drop, but we're not even talking about a horse who's been all that consistent. It's kind of get to the front end. If it doesn't work out, kind of pack it up and back up. So again, not a race where you can really sink your teeth or, grab onto a whole lot because these are non-2s, right? These are horses who are just have been beaten a lot and don't like to win a whole lot. You want to put a bow on this race, Mike?
Yeah, and I still think you're right to just say you probably don't want to trust anybody too much in here, and we'll just see if the class drop, is exactly what the 9's been waiting for because there's a version of this race where the class drop is so significant
Yep.
that she's just better than these horses.
Because in these types of races, these are horses that don't win. And generally, they don't want to pass horses. You want to be out in
Yes,
front to where, hey, you know what? If you're going to beat me, you have to come past me,
exactly.
especially with the horse dropping like this. So that's not a favorite. For at least one thing you could take out of this race, we're not trying to beat that short price in this race of the sequence. We're both including the horse because could very easily get Brave out front. Let's flip back over to Gulfstream Park. Mike, and shout out to producers Bobby and Lucia for helping us out with these new videos we're doing. They're doing a great job on the DRF YouTube. We head here for the Hurricane Bertie. It's a grade 3, 6.5 furlong sprint. Nick's style has been really, really good. 6 for 7. The only loss came to Ways and Means, who was the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint favorite last year. So losing to that one, no shame there. You have Into Champagne, who actually faced pretty solid company last year and was a good sprinter. You have Our Disaster, who's very quick. Spirit Wind, who's been in races just like this for the last year or so. Those are probably the most logical in
Yeah.
here, Mike. Who are some of the horses that are on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, among the two favorites, I think you want to start off, talking about Nick Style and
Yeah.
Spirit Wind. They're both sub 2-1 on the morning line. They're two really good horses. For me, I just feel like Nick Style is the better horse.
Yeah.
And so that's the horse that I'm going to key. And I understand that you can look at Nick Styles' two most recent races. You see her winning, but with buyers in the mid 80s, and you feel like that's not exactly graded stakes stuff. She's going to have to run faster than that, but she has run faster than that in the past. And I just feel like she just won so easily 2 starts back at Tampa when it felt like a prep to me. And then last time, I know it's not a fast race, Gino. You can comment on this if you want. I'm not so sure that's not the kind of race she's supposed to lose, considering where she was early, the wide moves she had to make. I know that the horse that she ran down has a little bit of seconditis, Dazzling Blue. Seems like she never wants to win, but that horse was on the lead and clear through the upper stretch. And I like the way that Nick Style came and got her. So I'm not going to worry about the figures for a recent start. I think she's good. And I think the 6.5 helps her more than it helps Spirit Wind. I think she's going to be right up close in here. I just think she's the best horse in the race. I got Spirit Wind in there. I'm not going to get knocked out by her. And I have Into Champagne in there. This layoff concerns me, but she's a talented horse.
Those are the 3 horses I'm going to build most of my ticket around too, Mike. Honestly, we feel pretty similar about those. Like, I think Nick Style's the horse to beat. And I kept coming back. Initially, I'm looking at Nick Style and I was like, I'm going to probably try to beat this horse in this race. But then after going through the field and coming back, it feels like the versatility, the type of trip that she should get. And you're right. While the race didn't come up as good on the buyer scale, visually, she's supposed to lose that race. That's the type of race where, she missed the break. She was way slow. The track really wasn't playing all that well to her. She had to make a wide move. That was her class that just got there.
Yeah.
She has better races in there. We know that. Then you have Into Champagne, who's cutting back to the sprint. I think that could be really key because her races last year were excellent. You can understand why when you have a filly like this and they run well, you want to go a little bit longer and you want to see how far they can go. You get the Derby and the Oaks sort of fever and you want to see how good your horses are. Now they can start back over again. I think she could be a really nice horse in the sprint division in races just like this. So the 1 and the 2 are going to be on that top tier all over the place for me. Very logical with the 4 and the 6, but honestly, most of my tickets are probably going to go through the 1 and the 2 there, Mike. I mean, Our Disaster, Spirit Wind totally makes sense for anyone that wants to play them or that's playing bigger tickets. I just think Our Disaster is going to have a lot of other speed to deal with. And I think for both of them, I'm a little bit worried once they get beyond 6 furlongs. I think for both of them, that's like 6.5 and getting into 7. That's farther than their best. 6 furlongs is really where they're at their best. So I think we can probably beat them in this race.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Our Disaster, I wound up not using anywhere, even sort of defensively. I'll admit I'm a little afraid that horse could wire the field.
Yeah.
But the longer I looked at the race, I just feel like Nick Style. I think there's a real chance that she's just better than these horses.
So one of the reasons why I'm a little cooler on Our Disaster, Mike, was when you go back and watch the race where Our Disaster and Done Enough were in the same race on January the 18th. Done Enough actually broke faster and was out of the gate quicker than Our Disaster, but was down on the inside. So they decided to kind of take back and not be inside dueling. And now you've got Paco aboard Done Enough, drawn to the outside. I wonder if they're going to really go pedal to the metal and not let Our Disaster get any sort of breathing room at all. Then you add Spirit Wind into the mix. That's kind of why I cooled on Our Disaster being a little more one-dimensional speed.
Yeah, it's also at least worth pointing out that our disaster did face Nick Style 2 starts back in Tampa, and it was no contest. I mean, Nick
Yeah.
Style was way better than she was. I'm with you. I think the pace could really be the key to this race, though. We'll see how these riders decide to play it.
So you got to look at our plays and our keys for race number 10 at Gulfstream. Let's move on to race number 11 at Gulfstream Park. We'll go a mile and a 16th on the turf course here. We've got an optional 35 starter allowance. What makes this really a difficult race, Mike? You have 5 of these that exit the February 8th race, February 8th, race 12 at Gulfstream Park. The 2nd through 6th place finishers, and they were all separated by just a couple lengths. I mean, you could watch that race, watch different trips, probably take different things out of it, which horse you might have liked more going into that race. You may maybe want to give them another shot back in here. So always difficult when you have a bunch of horses that finish close to each other coming back, because what do you use to separate those? Do you see that race as kind of a key race? Who are some of the horses you want in the mix here?
Yeah, I'm glad that you used that as your starting off point too, because that's what I did. I started out with those 5 horses
Yep.
just to see, and they
Same exact
obviously
thing.
all fit here, and we'll see. I found it pretty easy, actually, easier than I thought I was going to just decide which horses I wanted out of that race and which ones I didn't. And ultimately, I kind of really wanted to use a couple of other horses as keys in here, horses
Yeah.
that did not run in that race. We'll see how that works out for me. One of the horses that I have as a key there, as you'll see, is the number 1, who's going to be a really, really big price in this
Yep.
race. We'll see. This horse has only run once on the turf. I don't know if you went
Yep.
back and looked at
Yep.
this horse's race at Tampa. I don't know, man. I think he ran a lot better than that 55 buyer would suggest, with trouble at the start and then coming with a big run through the stretch. Did you give that horse
Not
any
shut
consideration? We're
off.
gonna get to your
Absolutely. I've got
yeah,
the horse in underneath. This is the spread race for me.
yeah,
All of your keys are in the mix for me, for
yeah,
sure. The 1 was visually really impressive. The Dam's a 3-time winner on the turf. And honestly, there's no monsters in this field.
right.
Like, if we think that race might have just been a little light on the speed figures, then she's not that far off, or he's not that far off from competing with this group at all. Horse got shut off in between horses and then tipped out 4 wide, big gallop out. I had like huge, nice W exclamation
Yeah,
points all over. It was like visually
yeah,
extremely impressive. The 5 was really impressive also too. Or excuse me, the 6, Mike, who you have Hall
yeah.
Monitor, the Clement runner, who was way out of it in that debut and closed extremely well wrapped up.
Yeah, Clement's, he's one of those guys. He's so good with first time starters. And so you don't want to get, too caught up when they look ready to go, because, he has his first time starters ready to go. But this horse, it's not like he had a perfect trip
No,
in that race. I mean, he got bumped pretty hard. I mean, basically knocked sideways at the start of that race, but he was sort of unfazed by that, settled off the pace. I thought he came, especially Gino, in my opinion, when he came into the stretch there, and there was a horse on a clear lead in there. He got that horse in his sights, and he just came and
quickly.
flat overpowered that horse at the end of the race. He looked really good winning to me. So I'm happy to sort of take some more lightly raced horses in here, in the 1 and the 6. And when we're talking about that February 8th race that 5 of these horses come out of, I ultimately just decided to give Andu the 5. I'll just give him the chance to rebound in here. He was favored in that race. He didn't run particularly well, but he did get that sort of broke from an outside post, got a 3 wide trip around the track while everybody else was saving ground, especially the horses that ran, 1, 2, 3 in there. They got to save tons of ground. This horse just sort of sat on the outside. So, maybe that's an excuse for him, because listen, when he broke his maiden 2 back on the class trip, he got a perfect trip in there, but he also really ran.
Yeah. He kept grinding last time out too. I like the blinkers come on. Maybe they'll just give him a little bit more focus,
Yeah.
and he could be a little sharper there in spots. What we both did kind of did too is, in races a lot of times where they all come out of a similar race, you sort of look to a different race sometimes, because you don't
Yeah.
know if they all finish next to each other. How
That's right.
good really are they? Are they all sort of like similar competition level? So I like a couple other horses that I definitely want to throw in from some of the other races. We were just talking about Hall Monitor. The 4 Sugar Buzz is a little bit interesting. I think fits well. A horse that was kind of knocking on the door, just won last time out. This barn actually, the Cazares barn, is pretty good. 17% first off the claim, 5 for 29 over the last 5 years in DRF formulator, a 263 ROI. You look at the 3 turf routes that Sugar Buzz has ran. Second really good race at 28-1, second beating the neck, and then the win last time out. Those are three very good races going a mile on the turf. I think this horse could sit a pretty nice trip in there. To the outside, is there a version of this race where the 12 stretching out from these 5 furlong races could just sneak away? How often do we see that nowadays in racing, Mike, where somebody gets loose, they all kind of take back a couple lengths, and a horse like this gets brave? A couple winning turf siblings, one of them going long on the grass, and this is a horse who's flashed sub 22 speed going 5 furlongs. So if you can kind of put that all together, the pedigree says they could be able to go a little bit long with that natural speed. Maybe this is a horse who could get brave. So I have them on top two in a version of this race where they go quick. We talked about the 5 already. I'm due. Let's see who else. The others, Dual Income was also in that key race. You mentioned the 1 Tepeyac. Yeah, it is a challenging race, but the ones that I'm really, really high on, Sugar Buzz. I think the Clement runner will come back and run well. I'm going to give the speed to the outside a look, and then I kind of was with you on horses coming out of that same race. I think we want to give I'm due another shot back.
This race is it's a real scramble in here. Trips are going to be really, really important in this race. And so we'll see how it all plays. And I think this is the kind of race where you want to include maybe as many horses as you can afford to include.
Yeah, and remember, this is a $1 base wager and not easy, so you're going to have to take a couple stands in some of these races where there's horses you like that you just can't afford to play on that ticket. So hopefully we're 4 for 4, Mike. We're alive, and we're going to turn the page over to the Grade 1 Beholder Mile. What I like about this field, you don't really have any proven Grade 1 horses in the U.S. Ricci is a Grade 1 winner before coming to the U.S. and actually has won group stakes races from 6 furlongs all the way to a mile and a quarter. But there's none of these horses that are coming off of last year as the proven horse to beat. Tarifa had a solid last year, was just solid, grade 2-ish kind of horse. A Cavallari up and comer for Baffert, but she hasn't really faced much, so we don't really know what she is. Alpha Bella loves to finish second. I think you can make cases for and against really all 6 of these in here. Hoosier Philly was like a precocious horse, hasn't ever really lived up to that reputation since their first, 3 wins early on. What are some of your overall thoughts of the Beholder?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. There's no. They have all got a little bit something to prove in here. I just sort of listen. Who's your feeling? I remember when she was getting hype early on. I never understood it then.
Me too.
I still don't understand. She's not for me. I'm not suggesting she can't win here, but I don't like that horse. To me, Tarifa was the toughest call for Brad Cox. We'll see what she does. So I'm sort of with you. It seemed like, anyway, I think I'm with you. It seemed like you were just sort of alluding to, like, she was fine. She wasn't great. She was okay. I remember on the lead up to the Oaks last year where she was winning all her preps at fairgrounds. I was like, she's okay. And I didn't like her that much in the Oaks. And of course, that's neither here nor there. She didn't run well that day. That's neither here nor there. She came back at the end of the year last year and was
okay again.
Okay.
And like,
I think there's a version of her where less than 9 furlongs is better. Do you agree with that? Like a little
100%. 100%. That's what I was going to say. I would be a little worried. I'd love if she had a more recent race under her, but the mile is perfect for her, I think. Right. Yeah. So that's the difference, because we saw when she went a little bit longer. I mean, when she went a little bit longer, she didn't have the same kind of late punch. And when you honestly poke holes in her resume from last year, she has 2 losses to Torpedo Anna. She has 2 losses on off tracks, on wet tracks. So you can probably make excuses for some of them. And then the form's really not bad. She's just kind of like, she's not a fun, sexy horse to bet. Right. She's just like, okay, sure. Like, if you have strong opinions and your keys win in the other legs, then I'll probably be alive with her, in that situation. But I don't love her in here.
Yeah. And plus, she's going to be one of the shorter prices in here, too. So it's like, she's just not for me. So I just, the more I looked at the race, the less I liked her. The other horses, to me, just don't make any sense at all. And, the 2 Baffert horses, listen, I guess they don't have to win. I feel like Ricci's a pretty good horse, though. And I don't mind her stretching. I know she got a good trip when she won the grade 3 sprinting. Too bad she got a good trip in that race, but she also, I like the way that she won that race. I thought that was a nice performance. She got, listen, last time she's in a super fast race, sort of trying to chase from the rail. The winner gets a 110 buyer. She can't run that fast. She did what she could do in there. She was 3rd best. I don't mind her stretching out. And I actually think she's pretty good. So I have her in there. And as far as Cavallari goes, I guess we'll find out in this race, Gino, right? She's very lightly raced. When I watch her, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, I don't think Baffert's come close to getting to the bottom of her yet. I
No,
think we have no idea how good she is. Alpha Bella, she's no
you know
superstar.
what
She
she
took a
is.
run at this horse last time. She easily turned that horse away in the stretch. I think there's way more to come for Cavallari, and I think she's going to be pretty tough in here.
Completely agree with you. We see this race very similarly, like with the horses to beat. I'm just going to throw a big one downfield on top of those horses to beat with the
Sure.
number 4 Ultimate Authority, because in a race where nobody scares the heck out of me all that much, I start going through her races overall. She's raced 6 times. Her career debut, she's sprinting. She loses to Copian, who we were just talking about, the horse that beat Ricci. And I agree with you on Ricci that like I thought she was really good off of that Las Flores win, and then I
Yeah.
was a little disappointed immediately following the Santa Monica. Then you go back and you look at how fast the race came up and the figure came up, and you have to reassess how you feel about that. She's super talented. I don't I wouldn't be shocked if they try to get a little aggressive with her too. That was my
Yeah.
only concern about with the two Bafferts here, because I think both of their best trips might be kind of on the front end if they were able to dictate things. So that's why I went to the 4, giving this horse a little bit of a shot. You start going race by race. She stretched out to a mile in her second and third starts. She has second finishing when she almost breaks her maiden. She earns a 90 buyer. She comes right back, breaks the maiden with a 90. Then she's in the Santa Isabel. She actually hooks a nice horse that day named Kinza, who won with a 95 buyer. And that was a race that sent Ultimate Authority off to a long layoff after the Santa Isabel. She shows back up. She hooks Accuracy, who was coming off of winning a race by 17. Accuracy earned a 107 buyer, I think, in that race. And then the next race earned a 95. So she's lost to horses who have earned some monster figures. In her second start back, she had to go really wide and made a big swooping trip. If she can take one more step forward
Yeah.
here, third start off the bench, I could just see her sitting a nice trip in a race where nobody scares me, Mike. I'm going to throw a big price in here because I think she's not that far below these. I could see her getting a trip. I'll use her with the Bafferts, who I think are the horses to
Yeah.
beat, and probably with Tarifa on a ticket or two, just in case, everything lines up well for me in the earlier races. But, for a lot of the races in the sequence, I think we're kind of approaching the races, maybe taking shots against some of the vulnerable favorites or some of the
Yeah.
more vulnerable shorter prices. But I thought this was really tricky, Mike. Kind of give us a one last look at your key, at your grid here.
Yeah, I just want to say that before when we wrap up that last one, that your take, I like your take on Ultimate Authority. Here's the one thing that held me back on her. She's got to go off Lasix again. It feels
Yep.
like she seems like she's really improves with
Up.
Lasix. She's got to go off. But that sort of held me back. But I think she's interesting at
Absolutely.
a price. There's the grid up there. I didn't, I'm trying not to spread around too much because I do like, shorter prices, favorites in the 2 graded stakes races. I'm not going to get a lot of value from Nick Style or from the 2 Bafferts. And so I'm not going to try to do a lot of spreading. I thought the Santa Anita, the first race at Santa Anita there, race number 5, the second leg here, again, it's one where I could see myself pressing the 9 and sort of moving the 2, 4, and 5 maybe back to sort of horses that I play on a different ticket just for some coverage. But we'll see. I threw them all in there because that's the one race where I'm just not really sure that I could really get through. And then that 11th race
Yeah. Good luck there.
at Gulfstream. I want to spread there. I'll know if I'm in a good position, I think, right after leg 1, Gino, because really like that 3 horse from Cassie. And if she can get the job done for me here, I think I'm going to give myself a lot of coverage.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of different options there if you can get the 3 horse home right off the bat. Hopefully, be forwardly placed, stretching out, sit a nice trip, or be
Yeah.
on the lead. That'd be great. Here's a look at my key, my grid, and my key horses. For me, a lot of it'll come down to like race 5. If the 4 wins, and if we can get Nick Style and into Champagne, one of those 2 winning, then I'll have a lot of coverage on the tickets. Those are the horses I'm going to try to build a lot of this ticket around, Mike. And
Yeah.
I'll have some tickets where, like always, as the gambler, I'll have one ticket where can I get to the crazy long shot in the last race,
There you
and if
go.
my opinion's right there, that'll be a fun way to close. That's what you want to make sure you're doing. However you do it, if it's a grid like this, like we've put together, if it's making your stars, your dashes, your circles next to the horses for a particular tier, we all have a method, Mike. I
Yeah.
always just want to make sure to remind people whatever your time that you slot away for your handicapping, make sure you slot at least some away to do this for your gambling, for your ticket
Yeah.
structure. Don't have it be 5 minutes to post and you sit down and you're just trying to put your pick 4 or your pick 5 together. Make sure you've done it the night before, a couple different variations, what works best for you, what's your bankroll. It will absolutely help you win more often.
Yeah, and you're right about that. Listen, make sure just to put it as briefly as I can, make sure you bet your opinions first of all.
Yep.
You have, if you don't like horses even if they're short prices, you do not have to include them.
Nope.
You can try to save down. The great things about the multi-race wagers is it allows you to bet a little to win a lot, and that's what you're trying to do.
Yep. And remember some of the key details about this coast to coast pick five from our friends over at First Racing and at First Bet. It's a 15% low takeout. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday now, they're giving you free daily racing form past performances, no computer wagering. So, all the smaller players, we have a big shot. The pools are getting up close to $300,000. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger as more people are playing each and every week. I had a lot of fun diving into this sequence with you, Mike. I wish you the best of luck. If it's not me hitting it, I hope it's you that hits the score.
I'm with you. Maybe we can both do it.
Let's do it. And whoever you play out there, we wish you the best of luck in the coast to coast on Saturday.